It is no secret that Ubisoft have been looking for a much-needed success. While all eyes are on Assassin's Creed Shadows at the moment, the Black Flag remake might offer something a little bit more of a straightforward route to a positive buzz for the company. In today's gaming world, a polished remake, especially the one that taps into strong emotional memories, can actually be a smart move. There's a power in hearing that familiar soundtrack, seeing those old ships on the horizon again, and remembering the simpler gaming days. This project isn't just about graphics. It's about evoking a feeling when you first fell in love with one of the best games of all times, Assassin's Creed 4. Black Flag. Now, before we get into this, there has been, well, not really any formal announcement from Ubisoft, but as of early 2025, a wave of leaks have practically verified the AC4 remake's existence. One notable reveal came from LinkedIn, where a developer accidentally listed the Black Flag remake as one of their projects. The same person also mentioned working on the rumored Oblivion remake as well. Now, of course, this could all just be a strong ruse, but that spark made a chain reaction of coverage from outlets like MP First, Insider Gaming, and Push Squared. So many gaming reviewers jumped on of this bandwagon. Although Ubisoft hasn't responded publicly, the consistency of these reports suggests the remake is very, very real. But who's behind it all? Well, according to several reports, the team leading development is Ubisoft Singapore. Now, where have you heard that name before? Well, they're the same studio responsible for Skull and Bones. Yes, that may raise just a few eyebrows considering the mixed reception that Skull and Bones received. But it's important to separate game design from asset creation. Ubisoft Singapore built a lot of cutting-edge technology for ship movement, ocean behavior, and naval combat. Now, they might be able to actually turn those assets and apply them to a game that we're actually excited about. It's also worth noting, Ubisoft rarely makes major games in isolation. Even if Ubisoft Singapore is at the helm, other studios like Quebec and Montreal are likely to be involved in meaningful ways. But it's also very much worth mentioning that it was Ubisoft Singapore that did a lot of the ship combat for Black Flag in the original days of 2013. So how could it be different this time? What are they actually supposedly going to change? Well, reports are starting to indicate the remake is way more ambitious than a graphical facelift. Expect updates like modernizing combat mechanics, possibly based on Shadow systems, improved stealth gameplay and enemy AI, enhanced environmental life like animals, weather, interactions, that sort of thing, and deeper immersion like guards reacting to storms or light sources. One leak even cited that new combat and wildlife systems were actively in development at this point in time, and because of how Ubisoft's shift to cloud-compatible tools like their Scala tech, game features built in like this one can easily be reused in other titles. In theory, this means that dynamic weather or even smarter enemies that have been created for AC Shadows, I mean, that world, despite the game's flaws, is absolutely gorgeous, and these might show up in the Black Flag remake. It's an efficient pipeline that they've got going on, and it could help unify the experience across the franchise. The current consensus among insiders sort of points to well, an early 2026. Initially, people were talking about a late 2025, and it still could be on the cards. However, November always being a great month that people release games is the most likely. But because of the lack of success of Shadows so far, Ubisoft announcing splits and a lot of layoffs, I'm assuming anything that they had in the pipeline is going to be pushed back. Some have raised a few concerns about, well, how Ubisoft are going to recapture that classic, but don't get me wrong, whilst the company do not know what they're doing at this point in time and have a complete lack of management within the system, game development wise, they still have a lot of talent there. Going back to the original game today, the cracks do sometimes start to show. It was built for consoles with less memory than a smartwatch. Seriously, 256 megabytes of RAM was all they had to work with. Limitations forced developers to focus. They couldn't render everything, so they had to be selective. The result, a game with a ton of personality and some clever workarounds, but those limitations really did show. But they're no longer necessary. In a remake, there's room to breathe. Islands that were once static scenery could now be explorable. But of course, the community has had their say, and with it comes a lot of speculation. Across Reddit, Twitter, and Ubisoft's comment sections, fans have been putting together their wish list, cutting down on repetitive training missions, which I'm going to be honest, I don't think are going to stop. They are also in Assassin's Creed Shadows, so Ubisoft as a company have still not not learned their lesson. Adding in depth to stealth systems would be nice, and HD Shadows does do that somewhat. Expanding the naval combat complexity, this is something that I think has to be done perfectly. You see, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag really paved the way for naval combat. Whilst it was introduced within Assassin's Creed 3, it was Black Flag that made it a staple of the game and the core gameplay focus, and they made it incredible. But then Skull and Bones came out, an entire game set around naval warfare, and they messed it up. Hopefully they have seen the reactions, the response, and, well, more likely, the financial ruin that game set them into, and that's where some of the changes could happen. Other things that players are requesting are removing town loading screens and making more islands fully explorable. Some of this being very achievable. Others, like massive open world expansions, may be outside of the scope for a remake like this, but it kind of depends on if this is just a faithful update or something a bit more transformative. But what's clear, here's a delicate line. Add too much and you risk losing that original feel. Change too little, it may feel dated and once again not feel like it's worth the hard-earned money of the fan base. At the core, they kind of just need to keep one thing though, and that's the identity. This means sea shanties, open waters, exploration, boarding ships without goddamn cutscenes, the pirate fantasy, everything like whaling, upgrading the jackdaw, being able to just jump out in the middle of the ocean or go into the depths in a diving bell. Stripping out too much in the name of modern values will just dilute the experience, and I know it's like beating a dead horse telling Ubisoft to not ruin this, but I've got a feeling that they might just get this one right. The remake could be something special, but it could also fall into some of these traps that Ubisoft keep hitting. You know, feature bloat, technical jank, inconsistent polish. Assassin's Creed Shadows was over 100 gigabytes. They didn't even bother to try and slim down that game, and it is a clunky mess because of it. I think Ubisoft need to do something. And maybe the fall of their company, the stock prices slimming down, and of course the recent announcement that each of their games are being split into different subsidiaries might be the wake-up call, because their company is going under. They have to perfect this, and it has to not just sell well, but it has to outsell everything they've done in the last decade. There's a solid chance we will see this game within the next couple of years. If reports are true, it's more than just a texture swap. It's a real rework of mechanics, environments, and AI. But the bigger question now is whether Ubisoft will deliver on that promise. If they capture what made the original game so beloved whilst adding smart and modern touches, this could be one of the best moves in years. So until then, back up your save files, keep your expectations somewhat measured, but keep an eye out for the Ubisoft Forward event, because if we're going to get some sort of official announcement, it will be this summer. But let me know what you think. If you like the video, make sure you hit that button, subscribe to the channel if you want to support it. But until then, I will see you in the next one.